In today's video, I'll be going over the optical viewfinder on the Fujifilm X100V, its advantages and disadvantages, and if you stick around, I'll also be going over my settings on turning this X100V into a truly analog experience, so stick around for that. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is Jay. I'm an amateur enthusiast photographer navigating my way through the photography world, learning as I go and sharing my insights with you guys. So if you enjoy the content, give me a like, comment, and also consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any of my future content. Let's get it.
The hybrid viewfinder is one of the standout features that is often overlooked by new users on the X100 cameras, despite being the reason why these cameras cost a bit more than cameras with similar technical specifications. So why bother using the optical viewfinder when the electronic viewfinder is so bright and responsive? What's the point when you can have all the visual aids you need on the screen and film simulations displayed in real time to ensure your final image reflects what you see in camera? It all comes down to subjectivity, and this may come across as pretentious and cliché, but looking through an optical viewfinder still provides one of the most visceral experiences and provides an unmatched connection between the camera and the user. The optical viewfinder does not enhance, nor does it detract from how our eyes see the world. It's an intangible experience that only those who have come from optical viewfinders can understand when transitioning to electronic. There are two main advantages of the optical viewfinder on the X100V. First being that it provides an unobstructed view of your scene compared to an electronic viewfinder, which displays a scene based on your aperture, ISO, and shutter speed values. A good example would be if you are operating flash and you wish to lower your ISO and raise your aperture while keeping the shutter speed relatively fast. In the case of an electronic viewfinder, you will literally see nothing because low ISO, high aperture, and high shutter speeds will greatly diminish the exposure of a scene, and as you can imagine, trying to compose would be difficult. And speaking of composition, the other advantage of the optical viewfinder is that it allows you to see a bit more of the scene beyond the frame lines. In the electronic viewfinder, you will see no frame lines because the entire viewfinder is the frame. In an optical viewfinder, there is a white rectangle which represents the framing of what your final image will be. Everything outside the rectangle is peripheral. This is great for street photography as you can pre-compose and wait for a subject to enter your frame lines without having to take your eyes away from the viewfinder. The optical viewfinder does come with a drawback, and that is to do with the parallax. The X100V is not a true rangefinder camera, in that it doesn't actually have a rangefinder window. This means what you are seeing out of the X100V's viewfinder will not align perfectly with what the sensor sees from the lens. Luckily, the frame lines are still accurate. However, when it comes to focusing, especially at closer focusing distances, this poses a problem, and that is where corrected AF frame comes into play. In single shot AF mode with corrected AF frame turned on, you will notice there is a separate box that is offset to the lower right of the main focus box. The main box represents focus at infinity, and the offset box represents where the focus point would be at X100V's closest focusing distance. And somewhere in between the two boxes will be where your actual focus point would be. When you half press the shutter, the main focus point will shift slightly and turn green, indicating the point of focus. I've tried it extensively and have come to the conclusion that this method is not predictable and takes too much guesswork. On the X100V, a more effective way to focus would be to utilize the pop-up focus assist box by pushing the viewfinder selection dial to the left while in optical viewfinder mode. I hope that clears things up a little.
Alright, so now that we know a little bit more about the optical viewfinder, let me share with you guys the settings that I have on my X100V that turns this into a truly analog experience. Or at least I feel like the closest to an analog experience that you can for an X100V.
Let's run through the settings I'm using for my analog setup. This goes without saying, but we are set in manual mode. First and foremost, I assign viewfinder mode to the function button located between the shutter button and the exposure compensation button. In the menus, wrench icon, button dial setting, function setting, FN1, and locate view mode setting with the icon that says view mode. This is necessary for this setup, and I'll explain why shortly. Now we go back to the wrench icon home screen, screen setup, Display Custom Settings, OVF. Here is where you can personalize what will be displayed as an overlay on the optical viewfinder. For myself, I have MF distance indicator, exposure compensation scale, and battery level turned on. Everything else is unchecked. If we look through the viewfinder, you can see these elements displayed, but notice how clean and minimal the viewfinder looks. It's less distracting and it helps me focus more on composition. Obviously, you are free to choose whichever settings that you want to add to the display, as it is your own choice. Finally, in the AF/MF menu, Depth of Field Scale, select Film Format Basis. Where Pixel Basis calculates the range of precise focus, Film Format also adds to the range Perceived Focus. Where objects in this range may technically be out of focus, however to the human eye, viewing from a distance, it would seem to look in focus. This will provide you with some extra range when manually focusing. Now for the dials. If you wish to simulate an analog camera with aperture priority, you can set ISO and shutter speed to auto and select your auto ISO range of choice. Choose a higher aperture value, f8 or above, and using the focus ring, set the point of focus to your desired distance. Now we will use that function button we assigned the view modes to and toggle through the different view modes until we get to Viewfinder plus Eye Sensor. You may have to look through the viewfinder while toggling, as the LCD will be off when you select this desired mode. This ensures that the LCD will be turned off and the digital overlays on the optical viewfinder will not be displayed until you have your eye up to the viewfinder. And there you have it. In my opinion, this is the closest you can get to an analog camera shooting experience with zone focusing on the X100V. One final very critical advantage to this method is that the shutter response time is the fastest in this setup. With optical viewfinder and manual mode, the camera is not hindered by autofocus, so you won't experience that extra split-second delay when you perform a full press of the shutter button, as you would in single-shot AF or continuous AF modes.
Alright, that about wraps things up for today. If you learned something new, definitely let me know in the comment section below. And if you have any suggestions on what you would like to learn next, also let me know in the comments. My name is Jay, and until next time.